That down. Let's get on to this, shall we? As we get into the final leg of the journey, heading towards Avengers, Doomsday, Avengers, Secret Wars, a lot of people are already looking past that, as they have been for the last 6 years. Ever since Disney purchased a lot of the Fox assets, including X-Men, people have been waiting for the X-Men movie. They've been teasing mutants. They've been showing off some mutants, teasing some X-Men, all that kind of stuff. But when are we getting that movie? Just the other day, we talked about a report that came out that said they hadn't quite yet got a director locked down for an X-Men movie. But according to Deadline, that now may be done. As according to them, XMen Movie at Marvel Studio is circling Thunderbolts director Jack Schreier. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his name right. I've read it 1,000 times, but only heard it pronounced once or twice. Jake Schreier to assemble a new team. This is what they write. Exclusive. Following the successful launch of Thunderbolts, director Jake Schreier might already have his sights set on the next big Marvel Studio projects. As sources tell Deadline, he is in early talks to direct the new X-Men movie. They go on to say that even before the reactions began to come out about how impressive Thunderbolts was, studios already were trying to get in business with the director. But sources say in recent days, he has begun turning down jobs, as all signs were pointing to him landing one of the coveted directing openings in town. It's hardly a surprise that Marvel would stay in-house for this film, given how often it has rewarded directors with big assignments following the success of previous jobs. The Russo brothers wound up helming Avengers Infinity War and Endgame after directing their hit Captain America sequels. And most recently, Matt Shakman was given the directing reins of the Fantastic Four First Steps after helming the launch of WandaVision, the first Marvel Studios TV series for Disney+. All right. Now, first, it needs to be highlighted that what Deadline is now reporting is that he's their guy, but a deal has not yet been done. Now, 95% of the time, once these reports come out of the major trades that they're in now negotiations with this person, that usually means the talent's decided they want to do it. The studio has decided they're the person they want, and now they just got to work out the details, and it usually comes to fruition. But it does need to be stated that it's not a done deal yet, but it sounds like this is the guy. And if it is, am I saying he would have been the number one guy on my list? Not necessarily, but man, he's an exciting name. Because look, not only did he do obviously a fantastic job with Thunderbolts, that movie is far better than it has any business being. And a lot of that has to do with the direction. But he also did a great job with that, what was it called? Skeleton Crew. The Star Wars series Skeleton Crew. Like, he just did a phenomenal job with that. By the way, big thank you to Reggie, who just sent in a super chat badge to be supportive. Thank you, Reggie. So he did great with that. Also, that little series Beef, that won all the Emmys and all the Golden Globes. He was the director of that. Now he does Thunderbolts. He's been in-house with Disney now for a couple things with Star Wars Skeleton Crew and now with Thunderbolts. And I'll tell you what, if he can bring that sensibility to X-Men, if that's how this all turns out, I'll tell you what, it's a great move. It's an absolutely great move if they can lock this guy down. Again, he's already shown he knows how to work within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's shown that he can tell other, deeper, more interesting kinds of stories with both Beef and other things like a Star Wars project. If you can lock him down right now, I think you lock him down right now. Anyway, Rob, we've talked a lot ever since they announced that Disney and Marvel were getting the X-Men back. We've speculated and talked and dreamcasted about who could direct. If it does end up being Jake, what do you think about the choice? Good move, bad move? How do you see it?
Well, I think back to when Bryan Singer got the job directing X-Men back it came out in 2000. And they went to him because they thought his handling of the 5 usual suspects in that film was very deft. And I think that he's proven with Thunderbolts that he knows how to work with an ensemble. That, Taskmaster notwithstanding.
Yeah.
I think that he really did a great job bouncing between, and the same's true on Skeleton Crew. he knows how to work with an ensemble cast, and how I mean, it's difficult to make a movie with multiple characters and to not to drown in all of that, and to make it feel like you're servicing all those characters. And I think it's extremely vital for a movie like X-Men, especially. Look, all eyes, I think even more so than Fantastic Four. I mean, the X-Men are truly uh probably the most beloved characters. I mean, aside from Spider-Man, the X-Men have a lot of a personal connection to people, and they always have. And for me, they're my favorite branch of the Marvel universe in terms of comics. So I think, and of course, obviously you have Wolverine, but it's the family dynamic, and especially coming off the heels of X-Men 97, the animated series, this is going to be the most scrutinized. I mean, everything from casting to the villain to, I mean, whatever they're going to do, I don't envy the task ahead of them. And I'm certainly excited about it, but I think this is a very good choice.
I think you hit it right on the head when you said that this is probably, I mean, other than the Avengers movies themselves, which are always
Yeah.
going to be, you know, they're big things. This is probably more important to them moving forward than Fantastic Four, if for no other reason than just a numbers game. With Fantastic Four, you get 4 characters. The X-Men universe is literally endless. I mean, like once you get in there, you're not just talking about the core team of X-Men. You're talking about a world of mutants where there are literally hundreds of characters in their pantheon that they can go in and draw from, and not just one single comic line that you can go back in history and pull from. You can pull stories from Excalibur, and you can pull stories from Uncanny X-Men, and you can pull stories from, you know, X-Force, and you can pull stories like you got multiple comic titles with decades of history. And again, it was a really big deal for Fox. It's going to be a big deal for them. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Stitch Fix. Guys, you know I love movies, but you also know I have absolutely no fashion sense, and I absolutely hate shopping for my clothes. But thankfully, I have found a better way. Stitch Fix online personal styling makes it easy. With Stitch Fix, I get a stylist who understands my style, size, and budget, and they do all the shopping for me. Because look, shopping and figuring out style can be overwhelming, especially for somebody like me. When it comes to getting dressed, I don't even know where to start, to be honest. That's why I love having a Stitch Fix stylist. They really know what works for me. I get pieces that make me look great, and it's a real confidence boost. You just give your stylist your size, style, and budget preferences. You get to order boxes when you want and how you want, no subscription required. They send you personalized pieces, and the fit is always on point. No stores, no crowds, no stress. Just personalized looks that you will love. So guys, make style easy. Get started today at stitchfix.com/Campea. That's stitchfix.com/Campea. How big of a role do you think mutants are going to play, like in setting up the coming X-Men films in the next couple of Avengers films, Doomsday and Secret Wars?
Well, I think it's going to be, it's going to be huge, because they can pivot away from, they can bring in the superhero characters we've come to know over these 36 movies and the various TV shows. But what the X-Men movies do is, especially if they go to Battle World, and it's more along the lines of what they did in 2015 in the comics, they have one world. There's no more multiverse. So they can spend a long time, this new planet, this new Earth, this new reality, you go back and you can explore the entire relationship of mutants throughout history.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of the way. Look, a lot of people don't like Apocalypse, X-Men Apocalypse.
I was one that didn't like it so much.
But I think the first half of that movie is really pretty good. And I love that you see Apocalypse in ancient Egypt, and you carry forward. There's the Hellfire Club, in Victorian era. There's so many things that you can do with the X-Men. And I think if you decided to make 5 years of X-Men movies and not really focus on anything else, you could get away with it, because there's so many really rich X-Men characters. I mean, if you wanted to bring in Longshot and deal with the Mojo verse, if you wanted to deal with that whole, when Scott Lobdell was writing it and you brought in Bishop and Trevor Fitzroy and all that craziness. I mean, there's so much stuff that you can do And there's so many iconic storylines that you can delve into and there's so many different teams. I mean, whether it's, X-Force, X Factor, X-Men, the possibilities are just endless. And I think what's going to be really interesting is they have time to plan again.
Yeah.
They've got to go back and they've got to do what they did at the beginning. And if it's planned out correctly and if it's done right, look at what they did with X-Men 97. They were able to resurrect that and turn it into a banger for people, and people love that. And if they do the same thing with the X characters, I mean, casting is going to be key because the fact that they're bringing back the Fox X-Men, and a lot of people love who they cast, but you've got to have people that are just as good. And what they're doing is they're rebooting the X-Men, but they're demanding you compare and contrast because they're putting those characters front and center in the new Avengers movie. That's pretty ballsy.
Yeah, but you know why they feel confident in doing that? Because if you go back to like X-Men Days of Future Past, when you had Patrick Stewart and James McAvoy, and you had they saw that the audience can embrace that. The audience
100%.
can embrace if you hold up the old person and that kind of baton being passed to the new, it can work.
Oh, I think it's going to work great because they can get rid of all of that in one fell swoop and make it canonically interesting. They're taking what they do in comics all the time. They have these 2 gigantic event movies that are going to be the biggest superhero movies ever made. And then it's a way to reboot the universe canonically. And that's an amazing thing to do.
Listen, I'll tell you what, if you want, not quite get me excited on the level of finding out we were finally getting a Deadpool 3 or anything like that, but you want to get Johnny Campea really, really excited, you have Kevin Feige come out at Comic-Con and announce they have a 5-year plan, which he's already kind of alluded to that he's got a 5-year plan now in place for X-Men. But if he comes out at Comic-Con and says, we've got like a 5-year plan culminating in 2031 X-Men Age of Apocalypse. If you want to see me lose my mind, unlike a top 2 or 3 biggest movie announcements of all time for me, if they come out and say that they're going to build up to an Age of Apocalypse, I'm just going to straight up lose my mind. I'm going to absolutely go crazy. Now, can you put something like that together in just 5 years? I'm not 100% sure, but Kevin Feige seems to dream big, and I would be pretty excited if they did it. What if you could pick like one major X-Men storyline that you would love to see Kevin Feige incorporate into these movies, much like we had the Civil War storyline with Avengers and the Ultron story? What would be like, say, the one X-Men storyline classically that you'd like to see brought into this?
Well, first of all, let's hope they stay away from Dark Phoenix.
Been there, done that enough.
I really hope that they stay away. But obviously Age of Apocalypse is huge. And I don't think I loved House of M, but I don't think they're going to do that because you needed to have Avengers disassembled. They could have done that, but they didn't have the mutants to go there. The only other thing that I can think of off the top of my head maybe would be the Mutant Massacre, or when the Mutant Massacre, which was obviously a huge storyline that involved a lot of things, or it's tough. There was a great storyline when Kulan Gath, the sorcerer, it's the one where they have Wolverine
on the X cross,
X. That storyline, because that involves Spider-Man and all of New York was transformed. But I think the Mutant Massacre was a huge thing. But they did so many. There's so many. The thing is, Age of Apocalypse is huge. It was easily one of the biggest. And the other is X-Men versus Avengers, which I think they're kind of doing in Doomsday.
I think they're going to take some themes, some thematic stuff from that and bring it into Doomsday or Secret Wars or whatever.
But that's an interesting question. The thing about the Avengers movies is the team was the Avengers, so that was putting that team finally together and getting all those characters together. So I don't know what they would, the Age of Apocalypse is the obvious one. The problem with that is though, again, it relies on a multiverse gimmick when the universe changes and you see different aspects of those characters, which could be a lot of fun, but then you still have that kind of, it's not different variants, it's just different versions of the characters as opposed to the multiverse thing. But still, you could do it and not necessarily have the universe change. You could do an Age of Apocalypse storyline where he takes over the world or changes the time, does something, because it was so interesting to see like Magneto with Rogue and how they were an item. And I love the Age of Apocalypse storyline. And
What
they
about-
changed the whole line of comics for like a year.
Oh yeah, everything changed. What about, do you think they could get into stuff like Krakoa, where like, or do you have to get a few years into X-Men before you start covering stuff like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, dude, I love the Krakoan storyline when it was written by Hickman, but I think you need, the thing about that really only worked because you had 50 years of X-Men before that. I mean, I love that era. I think people would freak out a little too much if you did that because a lot of people didn't like the Krakoan era. But I mean, I will live and die
I
by
did.
the fact. Yeah, I mean, I loved the X-Men, Eternals, and Avengers storyline where with the Krakoan era and the resurrection of mutants, the Eternals were like, well, now the mutants are deviants, we have to kill them. I thought that was a great idea, and Druig had to do it. He's like, no, they've gone too far. I thought that was a great storyline, but I don't, it's hard to say, but I'm excited. I mean, I think we're going to get years of X-Men movies that are going to be well thought out. We're going to get a whole new cast of characters, and it's going to be really interesting to see what they do, because I don't think, as much as I go back and watch X-Men 1, which I really liked. And I really liked X-Men 1, X2, and Days of Future Past and First Class. And I think Days of Future Past is as good as any Marvel movie has.
I think it's a top 5 greatest comic book movie ever. I really do.
Yeah.
I think it's that good. Anyway,
and
guys,
it shows you can deal with all those characters in such an interesting way.
Yeah. Guys, the question is for you. It looks like we may now actually have the director for X-Men, maybe, and it's the guy from Thunderbolts. How do you feel about that? What kind of X stories would you like to see adapted as they move forward? How would you like to see them start? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.